who would like to have our work out in the world and would like to have people shell over some money to read it, we oftentimes have to pitch our work in ourselves, and that is a skill set that writers by nature do not possess intrinsically. We have to be taught to pitch our work, and believe it or not, even very outgoing people still have to be taught the skill of the elevator pitch and getting people's interest very quickly. So I'm one of those people. I can talk to you for 3 hours and then finally get to the point. But we have Kenja Purkey here, and she is going to school all of us in using social media and in-person networking to help us with our writing careers. So please give her a very warm Texas High Plains round of applause. And she's very fancy and has a presentation for us all to watch.
I gotta keep myself on track somehow. Let's see. Let's try to make sure this is on. I'm usually pretty loud, but just in case. Well, it's really good to be back. I actually was part of, it was called Panhandle Professional Writers, I believe, 10-ish years ago when I was part of it. I remember, I think I'd come to 2 meetings and was over by the coffee and said something like, we need donuts, and they said, and now you're on the board and you are going to do the food. And I'm like, okay. So like 6 months later, they're like, by the way, you're president now. So this whole like voting thing for board members is awesome. Yeah, I learned I should keep my mouth shut. So or they expect you to do things. So it's good to be back, and I started out my life as a reporter. I worked in radio, I worked in television. I then went to working for a congressman for 4 years, and then I went into nonprofit, and now I actually do marketing for the People's Federal Credit Union here in town. And I always say I still don't know what I'm going to be when I grow up. I'm kind of running out of time to grow up, but anyway, that's where I'm at right now. I also do a side gig. I do public speaking on marketing, and I also work for one of the most in-demand women business speakers in the nation. Her name is Kelly McDonald, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about Kelly in just a little bit, especially when we get to networking. So, but first I want to talk about, here's the things that we're going to talk about first. We're going to talk about the sales funnel, because I think that's really important to consider where your readers are in your sales funnel and how do you move them from the top all the way to the bottom of it. That's our goal. We want to get those readers to be our brand advocates for us. They're going to sell us to all their friends and all of their networks, and so that's where we want to get. We'll talk about that. Then we're going to talk about the author website. We're going to talk a little bit about blogging and newsletters, then social media, and then we're going to take a little break after an exercise. Sorry, y'all. I know exercises suck and I hate them, but they're important, I think. I think we learn as much from each other as you do from the person who is speaking. So, and then we're going to do networking and the elevator speech. So I want this to be pretty interactive. If you don't agree with me, if you're like, no, I don't need to have a blog, let's talk about it. I want to hear it. I want some give and take here. So feel free to jump in and talk to me. So let's talk about the sales funnel. This is what your sales funnel looks like. And your strategies are going to differ based upon where your readers are in that sales funnel. And we'll just kind of go through it a little bit. I'm a Nespresso evangelist, and I love Nespresso. I'm on my second Nespresso maker. So that's what I'm going to use. If I'm in the market for a coffee maker, first I have to be aware that there is an Nespresso out there. So that's the first step, is awareness. And then I've got to know enough about it to form an opinion. Do I like Nespresso? Do I think that they have good coffee? So once I know more about it, then I can move into consideration. Well, would I consider an espresso? There's a bunch of other different things out there. There's tons of other espresso makers, bigger, fancier, silverer. So there's different things that I could consider. But once I decide, no, it's definitely an espresso, I like the little pods, I can recycle them, then I kind of develop a preference. I have a preference for Nespresso. Once I get that preference, then maybe I'm ready to buy. Is it going to be on sale? Should I wait? Should I do it now? Then I move into purchase. Once I've purchased it, if I go in a month later and my Nespresso stops working, and I call them and I said, hey, my Nespresso is not working anymore. What you going to do about it? And they send me another, no questions asked. Guess what? I'm moving into that loyalty phase. And I'm going to tell all my friends, oh my gosh, they sent me a new $150 espresso maker. They didn't ask any questions. I've become an advocate. So that's what we're wanting to do. We're wanting to move them from the top to the bottom. And not only that, we're wanting people always to be coming into that funnel. So that's your sales funnel. Every single thing that you buy goes through that. Sometimes you don't think a whole lot about it and you go through really, really fast. Like if I'm buying a house, it's going to take me a long time to get through that sales funnel. I'm going to look at different school districts and I'm going to decide, do I want a fireplace? Do I want a pool? This is going to take a while. If I walk into Walgreens and I need a pack of gum, it's not a high consideration item. It's a low consideration item. I'm going to move through those steps really, really fast. And I think that's important to remember when we start talking about Facebook and paid advertising. If your book is $19.99, it's going to take a little bit longer to get through that sales funnel, unless you're Dean Koontz and you have people that are way down there and they're advocates and they're going to buy, if it was $50, they would buy that book. But if I don't know you and I get an ad on my Facebook and it's $2.99 on Kindle, I'm going to go through that pretty fast. And so I think that's where it works to a writer's advantage. So we're going to talk about the very basics, what you need to have. And I'm going to preface that by saying, to me, the very basics is your website and your social media. Now, if you're still in the phase of writing, you don't have your book completely done, I don't think you need a website yet. I think that can wait until you get that done and you're ready for that, because there can be some considerable expense in getting your writer website up. So, but I do think you have to have social media of some flavor these days to build your platform. What else might you need? I think blog and newsletters, either or both, and I'm going to show you a quick way how you can mesh them together to drive people to your website. And also I will say that if it's taking away from your writing, if you are blogging and planning your blogs and it is just a slog for you, a blog slog, if you will, don't do it. If it's taking away from your writing, do something else. Do a quick newsletter. Make it easy on yourself.
I do want to add, before we move on, that blogging can turn into procrastination, so watch out for that. If you find yourself planning out 2 months worth of blogs and you love it, and you're on page 50 of your novel, maybe split that around. And I'm guilty of that. Is the only reason I bring that up. So I've had to check myself. So
yeah, absolutely, I agree. So let's talk a little bit about your author website. And I put Dean Koontz up there. And forgive me, you're going to see exactly what kind of books I read as we go through this. So if you don't have a website, before you embark upon that journey, you need to ask yourself, what is the purpose of your website for you? Is it to get a publisher because you have a manuscript but you don't have a publisher? Is it to sell your books on your website or link it to Amazon to get people to move through that funnel? Is it to tell them about yourself? It's actually all of that, because it basically is your sales funnel. So those are some things to think about. First things first, your domain name. I have some friends who have chosen their domain name as their book, which is great for your first book. After that, you're going to be switching, and people who may have gone to your blog on your website, they're going to be like, where did they go? Well, now you're on to your next book. So the best idea is to be your name, yourname.com is the best. If you are Jane Smith, that's probably already taken. So Jane Smith writer, writer Jane Smith author, I'll kind of play with that, but make sure your name is in there. Another thing yes?
How much consideration do you need to put into, like if you're Google your name and doctor, people that aren't writers but that have your same name that are
Pretty prominent, yeah.
pop right up. How different do you need to make yourself? You know what I'm saying?
I think it's pretty easy because people are going to be Googling Jane Smith's book. So if Jane Smith is a doctor who has written a book, then there might be an issue. But if Jane Smith is a doctor and you're a writer, I think as you build your platform, and we'll talk a little bit about the bots and spiders on the interwebs, and as you build your platform, you're going to come up quicker too.
And I want to make a comment. I had created an author name, and I decided to check it out on the website. And when that name came up, it was not somebody I wanted to be associated with. So I changed my author name because it's like, no.
Well, I think that's yeah, because you don't
So
want to be
that's
getting hate
another-
mail and it's not even you. So yeah, I think
And I
that,
didn't want people to look up and,
yeah.
even associate.
I bet that was a hard decision to make, but
It hurt.
yeah.
But I'm happy now.
Well, good. So when you do get your domain name, sometimes people have their web developer secure that domain name. If you do that and they use their credit card, that means you don't own that. Make sure, even if you're using a web designer, that your credit card secures your domain name. That way it's always yours and you're not going to have to worry about it being held hostage by somebody else.
There's an entire marketplace. Whenever you go to a website and it says, click to buy this domain name, that's because somebody out there used a credit card and bought yourname.com, hoping one day you would have to go and buy that name in the market from them.
Right. So, should you do your website yourself, or should you hire out? Or should you maybe do a mixture of each? That's going to be totally up to you. If you hire someone, it's going to cost you more, but it's going to be less work for you, especially if you're not a programmer, don't have the time, the bandwidth, you'd rather work on your novel, then hire somebody. If you're like me and you like to DIY and learn about it and go through that process, then do it. There are so many great websites. I think that probably the biggest developer or the do-it-yourself is Wix right now. The person that I use for that, I do their blog and their newsletter, she uses Wix, and it seems really easy. Back when I had a blog, I used WordPress, and I had to teach myself a little bit about that and how to do the apps onto it and all of that stuff, but it's not that hard and you can get it. When I did my blog, I went on Fiverr, because at first I wanted a logo. And so I went on Fiverr and he did a logo, and I'm like, do you do websites too? And so we contracted. It didn't cost me $5 for the website. We contracted outside for that, but it was like he designed the whole thing on WordPress for me. All I had to do was keep it up, and it was like $150. So that was pretty cheap for me to go ahead and get online. If you do decide to hire out, this is such an arduous process. We redid our credit union website not too long ago, and I needed medication to get through that. So first you have to find a developer. Who is going to be a good developer for me? And so you have to do kind of some research, ask some friends, do some Google search, best websites for authors, whatever. But questions to ask is, can they do updates to the website for you? And how much will they charge to do that? If you call them and you leave 25 messages and they're not getting back to you, no, that's probably going to happen to you on down the road with them. So get somebody who you feel is responsive. They don't talk over your head. They don't use all these words that you don't understand. That's computer website speak. I think all those things are important, and that you have a good rapport with them. We have some pretty great website people. I think they're out of California, and they are so responsive. If I call and say, oh my gosh, our rates have changed, can you get that on there? It's like 10 minutes. And so we've had a great relationship with them. So here is one of my favorite websites. I don't know if y'all know who Chuck Wendig is. I love his white space. If you get onto his website, it's so much lovely white space. And he's funny in that, oh, my little pointer, oh, there it went. Where did it go? I thought, there it is. Okay. There. So the main things that you need You need a blog if you're going to blog. You need what your books are. He has his schedule, which I think is fun. Where's Wendig? I love this. This is your bio, but he calls it, wait, who the hell is this guy? He has a comments policy because he's pretty politically charged, and so he's kind of done for his blog, he has a comments policy. And then, of course, your contact form is really important. You could have a media page, include your photo, downloadable book covers. So if people, reviewers or whoever, need to use those, they can. Your social links, extremely important, and Chuck has those up there. And of course your blog, which we said. I think this is extremely important because you are building your platform, so you are going to be wanting to build your email list. And so anything that you can do to get them to subscribe to your updates, to your newsletter, to your blog updates, do that. Other considerations, keep it clean. If it's all these different colors and all these graphics and they take 10 minutes to load, white space is your friend. So make sure you keep that very, very clean. Multiple purchase links. Remember, we're putting people through that sales funnel. So almost every page should have some sort of action button. Subscribe here, buy here, visit my page on Amazon, here's Goodreads, whatever. Make sure you're helping them move through that funnel. And then I don't even think developers do non-responsive designs anymore, but you want it to look good whether they're on a laptop or a mobile phone or a tablet. So responsive design is extremely important. So once you've got your website up, how do you know how effective it is? Google Analytics is your best friend. And so here's the things that we're going to look at. We're going to look at number of visits or sessions, unique visitors, how many people have come back, but how many people are brand new. Those are both important. Page views, bounce rate. Do they get there and they land and they're gone in 30 seconds? Or have they hung out for 10 minutes looking at various things on your website? Your top content, what gets the most eyeballs? Traffic origination, where is it coming from? Is it coming from Facebook? Are they doing a name search into Google? Where is all your traffic coming from? Your keywords, what do they put in to find you? Is it Jody Thomas Writer? How are they getting to you and how can you capitalize on that? So those are your keywords. And then we'll talk a little bit about SEO, which is search engine optimization. How can you make your website easier for people to find? So for website analytics, I use Google Analytics, and I can't even tell you, I'm not technical, so I can't even tell you, is it a piece of code or is it like a little plug-in? I'm not sure, but you tell your web designer, I want Google Analytics. And so this is for my website at the credit union. This is what I see. So it tells me, and it says last 7 days down there. You can change that to 30, you can change it to 60, and you can kind of get an overview that way. So I can see that in the last 7 days, I've had 2.2 thousand users for 4,000 sessions. My bounce rate is going to be high because I'm a credit union, and most of them go on there to click on their online banking. So my bounce rate is high. Your bounce rate should not be that high. And then the most common session is 1 minute because, again, they're going to that online banking. Hopefully yours is going to be much longer than that. So how do you acquire users? This shows you, is it organic search? Is it somebody typing in Jody Thomas Writer? And that's how they find you. Or is it direct? They know already that they're going to Jody's website and they click it. So they don't even search it. They know where it is. That's direct. Is it social? Did she post something on her Facebook that is now leading people to her website? Referral, I'm not real sure what that is, and then other. Those are the most important things to look at, though. If I'm running a Facebook ad campaign and I'm leading them directly to my loan rates at the credit union, I want to make sure that my social referrals are really high. If not, then what I'm doing is not working. You can see with Google Analytics, how are your users trending over time? You can look at your active users. How well do you retain users? Are they coming back week after week, or are they just one and done? So those are other things that you can see. You can see, where are they coming from? Are they all in Russia, which is a credit union, believe it or not, lots of them are from Russia because they're trying to hack into us. So it's interesting to see where most of your people are. Obviously the United States is pretty high. And you can see, when is my website the busiest by time of day? So if you know most people are on your website at 2 p.m., maybe at 1 p.m. you post something to move even more people over there because they've got time. They're at work, they're back from lunch, they're bored, they're online, and you can move them there. And then what are they using to get to it? Is it a desktop, a mobile, a tablet? So it shows you that also. It shows you so much more, but this is just the basics. I mean, you can do reports, you can do all sorts of stuff. This is really important to me. What pages of your website are getting the most eyeballs? If I'm running a Facebook campaign for my loan rates, I want that loan rate to be up at the top. I want to know that people are seeing that on Facebook and going there. The one with just a dash, that's our homepage. That's just tpfcu.com. So that's why it's the highest by far. E-services is the next. The contact us, which means people are wanting to contact us. And then they look at our loan rates. So you can kind of see how all that goes. And you'll see which, lots of times it's a blog post. Maybe you've written a blog post that really resonates with people, and all of a sudden you see that at the top, and you're like, it was 5 ways to become a writer. You're like, okay, I need to do more of that kind because obviously that's hitting some people. And then you can even put in goals. So my goals are the click join now. We have join our credit union. So that's one of the goals. The other one is the mobile call button. Those are my 2 goals. And 55 doesn't sound like a lot for the join now, but that's a pretty detailed application they have to fill out. So that's a good way to figure out if I'm driving people there pretty well. So, any questions on analytics?
For those of us who are DIY, does Google charge a fee to do all that stuff for your website, or do you just have to?
It's like a piece of code or a plug. It's something really easy that you just plug in, and so no, you of course have to sign up with Google, and this is my Google account, and so that's how you get to it. But from what I understand, no, there's not any cost to do that. Yes.
We're talking about, in your case, a number of hits from Russia. At what point does the analytics suggest that the red flag pop up?
I don't know. I don't think our analytics says, "Ooh, this is bad. You should work on it." That's up to our e-services team to go, why are we getting all these hits from Russia? And we're so used to that. We are so cyber secure. We spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on that. So it's interesting to know. And if we were to go down the website, if it was hacked or we were to go down, that might be interesting to look at for the diagnostics. Why is that happening? It's not surprising for us. If all of a sudden you and your author website start getting a bunch of Russia people, I might be concerned, and I might call my website developer and go, why? Why are they interested in me? A bank, you can see why. But an author page, maybe not. And so what is actually going on? So that, I would definitely be interested in that and why. And your blog, you're going to get so many, I made $50,000 in 10-minute comments. I hated that. So anyway, you can't stop them. You can try to stem the tide, but you're always learning and always getting better for that. You have to. You have to stay on top of it. So let's talk about, any other questions on any of that? Okay, I know it's really fast, and I could spend an hour and a half on every single topic. So this is a way, just a quick dive, basically. So author blogs and newsletters Should you do it? Yes, because you want to push people to your website and you want to push them down that sales funnel. And your blog and your newsletter is an incredible way to do that. And it's really good if nobody knows you yet and you're just starting to become established, you just got your website, your blog and your newsletter are going to be ways to really start establishing your platform. So why should you blog? You're writers. You already have that skill, so it's very complimentary there. It's low-cost marketing. Really, all it costs you is time. Like I said, when I had my blog, I didn't even have a website. I just had the blog, and I was on there for like $150 and ready to go. It can reinforce your other promotional efforts that you are doing. It never takes a day off. You may be in the Bahamas for a week, but you've scheduled your blog post and it's going on and it's working your sales funnel for you. And that's really important. It's got unlimited potential. You can monetize your blog. I know different authors who have been like, well, I've been doing this. I'm getting lots of traffic. They love my how to write articles. I'm going to charge a subscription now. It's $5 a month, but some people are going to pay it. And so it can even become an extra revenue stream for you if you are getting a lot of traffic. And it's a feedback loop, barring those who are like, I made $50,000 in 5 minutes. It's a good feedback loop for your writers, or for your readers, I mean. And so it's a way to communicate with you. I'm an author stalker, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in networking, but I am always amazed at how approachable my favorite writers are. And I mean, I've become really good friends with these writers that I admire, and I think that is awesome, and I think your readers will think that is awesome also. So what do you blog about? I've been on a lot of different blogs from writers, and it's all over the place. Some people say that ideally you should blog about your genre or what your writing is about. And maybe that, especially if you're just establishing yourself, I think that probably has a place. If you're Dean Koontz, I think you can pretty much write about whatever the heck you want to write about, and people are going to read it. So this is his is called Essays. It's not actually a blog, it's called Essays. The one that I do is called Trends. It's not a blog. On the website it says Trends. So you can pretty much call it whatever you want to call it. You can blog about pretty much anything. Your pets, if there's a cat picture, I'm there. So you can blog about your pets, what's going on in your life, your work in progress, the holidays and how you prepare for them, things that you're passionate about. If you're passionate about rescue dogs, I like to vary it. For me, I think people get tired of, this is my book, this is my book, this is my book. I want to know who you are as a person and that you are a real person. And so I think varying it and changing it up is great. And it doesn't have to be 600 words at all. Your blogs, and in fact, writers are different. They have readers as their audience, and we don't mind if it's 700 words. Most blog posts are very sharp and to the point. 5 reasons to buy your kid an espresso for Christmas. Oh God, that would be a bad idea. Anyway, but anything that you can do is like, if you can tell them 5 ways to make yourself a better writer. Oh, it's only 5? That's going to be quick. I'll jump into that for a second. Things that make it short and sharp, I think, are best. But I'll also read the long ones. Do your blog research. This one is Neil Gaiman's, and he does a lot of climate stuff, which I think is fascinating. That's what he is passionate about. He actually spoke at the Climate Summit not very long ago. And so he's talking about how he should be blogging about good omens because it's shooting again. Yay. But he's like, this is what's important to me. And so look at them and look at what they write about. Jennifer Estep is another one of my favorites that you're going to see a lot of up here. She's very my book, my book, my book. And I think that's okay. I think there's definitely a place for that. And her blogs are very short. This is my book. This is a sale. This is when we're releasing. This is this. And I think that's great too. If you're brand new though, I think that gets boring. So blog about your niche, what your thing is, blog consistently. It doesn't have to be once a week. It can be twice a month, but make a goal and stick with that. Your readers want to know what to expect. Oh, today is the day that we get a new blog post. So I think that consistently is very important. If you look at your Google Analytics and people are searching some weird term to get to you, use that in your blog title. Make it fit. You don't want it to be weird or sounding artificial. And sometimes the people who write our blog for my credit union, I don't do that because I don't have the time for that. And I pay somebody else to do that. And they're really good at finding, they searched lowest loan rates. And they write a blog about that. And they put that in the title so that they know when people search lowest loan rates, that's going to come up. And so you can do that also. If you look on your website and they're Googling some term to get to you, take advantage of that. Keep it shortish, we talked about that. And when you do that, don't just post it out on your website and let it die. Scream about it on Twitter, on Facebook. I wrote a great blog about climate change, or my cat, or whatever. Make sure you share it to all your social media. Newsletters. They're easy. You can do MailChimp, Substack. The writer and speaker I work for uses my Emma, and I love it. I have no idea how much it costs. I don't think it's huge because she doesn't spend a whole lot of money. She probably has more than your average person to spend on it, but it's easy. I go in there and I can knock that sucker out in 20 minutes. Why should you do a newsletter? Well, it forces you to write regularly, just like a blog does. It's a home for your voice. What I like about newsletters is if I post a blog and then I share it on my Facebook, what do I do if my readers aren't on Facebook or Twitter? They're reading, they're not online. I want to be sure that I gather all those email addresses so that I can send my newsletter to people who might not read my blog. That's why I think they're both important. It builds your credibility. Nobody can take it away. People have lost jobs, lost livelihoods, but that newsletter and that blog, those are yours. And so nobody can take that away from you. And again, you can monetize your newsletters just like you can monetize your blog. But you don't have to. So should you do both or focus on one? Up to you. But again, the audiences could be different. People you'll reach with a newsletter, you might not reach with a blog. And so I want to grab both of them. But be aware that newsletter list building takes a lot of time. That's not something that's going to happen overnight. And you want to make sure that the people who sign up for your newsletter are people who are really interested in it. If you go to a writer's conference and you're just, sign up for my newsletter, sign up for my newsletter, are those going to be, or if you do a Facebook campaign to get people to sign up, are those going to be people who are really interested in you as a writer, or are you going to have a lot of emails that are never going to convert for you as a sale? So I would say pick one or the other at least. If you can do both, do it. And I'm going to show you a way that you can do them both and do them easily. And I think this is ingenious. So this is who I work for. Her name is Kelly McDonald. She started out by owning a marketing agency. And she was noticing that people were saying, hey, would you come speak to us about marketing? And she specialized in diversity marketing. And not just racial diversity, but LGBT, and urban versus rural. Any way that we can be different from each other is diversity. And so how do you reach all the people, basically, in a way that they want to be reached? So I went and saw her speak, and as I always do, I'm a stalker. And so I went up and talked to her after she spoke, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we need to bring you to our board and talk about diversity. And so we did, and we hit it off. She and I did. And this was 12 years ago, and now I work for her. And so when we talk about networking, her biggest thing is somebody will come to her and say, could you do a presentation about candy corn? And she tells me, Kenja, the answer is always yes. Always yes. And sometimes that yes is such a pain in the butt, but it opens up doors that you would not believe. So she's asked me to do her newsletter and her blog. And her husband had been doing it before, and he wants to retire, and so that filters down to me. So this is the newsletter we sent out on Thursday. It doesn't have the heading because I couldn't fit everything, but it's got the major pieces. The first thing it has at the top that you can't see is what's new. So this is what she's scheduled on doing this month or whatever. Oh yeah, and I forgot to tell you. After people started asking her to speak, she became a professional speaker, shut down her marketing agency, and then wrote 3 best-selling books. And so that's kind of been the way she's evolved. And so she travels, she speaks. Before COVID, she had probably about 200 gigs a year. She started out at about the $5,000 level. Now she's at $20,000 for an hour keynote. I'm like, I used to think I want to be her when I grow up, but she works too dang hard. I do not want to be her. So anyway, at the top it says what's new, and then it has her featured links, and then it has her schedule. Where's Kelly? Because she's a diversity writer, we don't take time in writing our own diversity articles because there's some great stuff out there. So what I do is I have Google alerts set up for diversity, LGBT, let's see, what else do I have? Social cause marketing, digital marketing, because she also does marketing. So I have all these alerts set up, and it shows me the newest news articles about that. And so I find the ones that I like the best. I send them to her and say, I think these fit within your brand the best. She picks them, and we put them on there. So this time we had 5 digital marketing predictions for 2022. I love those 5 because they know it's a quick read. 5. It's just 5. We did a lot of Gen Z generational type stuff, and so I always think these things are interesting. Gen Z millennials more likely to adopt pets and switch jobs to spend more time with them. Things like that I think are interesting, and our readers really like it. She does a diversity tip of the month that she actually writes, and we put on there. And then that did you know at the bottom, it's I think I put about Sally Ride being on a quarter, so it's the first LGBT astronaut person to be on a quarter is what we put on that. So this is all other people's work, not ours. How do we get away with that? Let me show you. So if I were to click on the Gen Z millennial story, I have also used this as her blog. And so I post it under trends using Wix, and it takes it to her blog. And what you don't see at the very bottom, it says source, and it has a hyperlink. So if they actually want to go to the article on NBC News, they can. But I'm doing the newsletter and the blog at the same time. And what I think about is cool, this is not the whole article. So of course they have to read more. It takes it to her sales funnel, her website. And I might read that article on Gen Z, and then I might look up and see DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion is one of her topics. And I might go, ooh, what's that? And I might click onto that, and that puts me further down that sales funnel. So I think it's really cool to drive people using your newsletter back to your website. So this is the front page of her website. The bottom pictures are her newest book was How to Talk About Race at Work. And she does it from a business case, is that more diverse teams make more money for your business. So she does it, that's how a white girl can talk about DEI pretty much, is because she's doing it from a business standpoint. And her book hit #1 on Amazon Business Books. And so that was her celebrating that. But this is her website front. And so you see the about, the speaking, the DE&I, her books, which she has 3, and then trends is her blog. And if you click that, it would have all the different stuff that we've done into the newsletter over the year, but it rolls her blog and her newsletter into one, and I think that's really ingenious. So that's what it looks like. If I just click trends, it has all these different articles. Okay, any questions about blogging or newsletters? I know we're going through this pretty quickly. We'll move on to social media then. Which sites do you think are important as a writer to be on? I mean, Facebook, right? Twitter. I think Twitter is great from a promotional standpoint, but I think the community of writers on Twitter is just absolutely amazing. Do you do Instagram? I don't know that I would either. I mean, because Instagram is visual, it's pictures, and so what are you going to put your book over and over? So, I mean, yeah, I think Facebook and Twitter are the two big things. Anything else? Anybody else think something else?
Maybe Pinterest. And I'm thinking of a romance writer, because you can put, your cast list of on your bean cake or cheesecake.
I can see potential there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Publishers like Instagram because, they always put out their covers of their new releases and stuff like that. So they have a lot more diversity in their visuals.
Right. Yeah, because they have several authors.
Yeah, but
several
as an author, unless you're doing a rapid release and writing 5 or 6 or 10 or 15 or 20 new novellas and titles a year yet, I haven't seen as much return on that. Although, like what just happened up here earlier, I mean, that's going to be a good Instagram post and I'm going to get a lot of engagement, but that happens like once a year. So
Yeah. And I mean, if it works for you, go for it. Yes.
I follow 2 different writers in particular that use Instagram a lot, and one of them posts pictures of her cat.
I'm in.
And they're building a farmhouse, and she posts pictures of that.
And that's interesting.
Short
Yeah.
holidays. The other one posts pictures, it sounds weird, but pictures of her planner every week. For people that are into planners, I mean, they eat that stuff up.
Sounds like
Yeah.
she's using it like a blog.
Yeah.
She's using her Instagram like a blog.
Sure.
Right, and I was going to ask you, but since you brought it up, is, it's interesting to me in terms of content. Most of the people I talk to would rather just read something on social media rather than click the link to go to the blog. Is there a way to fight that, to get people from your social media to your funnel on your website?
I mean, I never post Kelly's blog on her Facebook or even articles from it, because I want that to go out in her newsletter and hit those people and then make them go to her website. I don't care what they want. I want them to go to the sales funnel. I mean, if it's an interesting enough article, they're going to go to the sales funnel. So now in my mind, I'm going, 7 romantic barn houses for romance lovers. I'm doing Pinterest posts in my head now. So here's some Facebook stats for you, and I hadn't seen the most recent stats. Of course, it's the #1 social media network, good, bad, or indifferent. We all hate to love it, love to hate it. 2.9 billion users on Facebook, but just because there's that many users, 1.9 million daily active users, and so that's the number you're really going for, is that 1.9. They had $27.2 billion in advertising revenue in Q4 of 2020. I just can't even fathom that. And a lot of that, well, not a lot of that, because I'm a credit union. I don't spend that much money, and I'm pretty cheap, and I get my clicks pretty cheaply, but I was part of that. 200 million small business users worldwide on Facebook. It's a juggernaut. You can hate it all you want, and I do. I am on Facebook 24/7. I have people who want customer service on our Facebook page. I am never off. People who take a Facebook break, I don't know what that is like, and that's hard sometimes, but that's my life. So, do you do a fan page as a writer, or do you do your personal page and use it as your writer page? What do y'all think? Right, but I mean, yes, ideally you would have both, and your personal page is for your friends and people you know, and your writer page is for your stalkers like me. So yes, ideally yes, but if you had to pick just one.
Business.
I agree, but I know really prominent writers who have done it both ways, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit. Your personal friends can get tired of your buy my book posts. And a personal page, though, is more personal. And if I have opinions that are very strong and may not be the opinions of people who my readers are, that could be a problem. And how do you handle that? So it's up to you. I like the personal page because you can get to know that writer so much better. I am so much more invested in some of the writers that I'm personal friends with on their Facebook. I don't know if that would transfer to more sales though. And we've got to think of our sales funnel first and foremost. So this is my friend Laura Resnick. Her dad was Mike Resnick, 5-time Hugo Award winner. She is amazing. I love her. She has such an interesting life. This is her personal page. She does not have a writer page. And she has like 759 followers that are not her friends. So those are probably her readers that are not her friends, but they follow her as a writer. And she, I think, is fascinating because she has this, her Esther Diamond series is what attracted me to her. And then I'm like, she doesn't have an author page. That's so weird. Okay, I'll friend her. I mean, all she can say is no. And she said yes, and this has been several years, but she's a cat rescuer, so she works as a foster for a cat in St. Louis. And so she has like 25 cats roaming her house at any time, which is always fascinating because her stories about the cats are hysterical. She does underground St. Louis tours. So I guess there's like all these underground tunnels underneath St. Louis, and she does tours of those for tourists, which her stories about that are always fascinating. When one of her cats, Poe, died, I cried for 2 days. When one of her foster cats died, I cried for 2 days because I am invested in her as a writer, but also as a person. And so I think that's a pretty cool thing. At the same time, this was her post yesterday after the Rittenhouse verdict. And so that's pretty polarizing. And not everybody agrees with her. And a lot of people, those get pretty lively, those conversations. And I think if you're okay with that, that's fine. You see people, I'm never buying another book of yours again. You should just be a writer and not have an opinion. And, all the things that we see about artists. And so the good thing is, I love Laura. I feel like we're friends even though I've never met her. That's the cool thing about a writer personal page. So this is Jennifer Easton. And this is absolutely a sales funnel writer page. She has 33,000 followers. She follows 347 people. And her posts, she's prolific on Twitter. She's prolific on Facebook. I don't know where she gets all the time to do everything that she does. She has a blog. Most of her blogs are just buy my book, but in prettier ways than saying just buy my book. And so it's hard. I don't know who she is as a person. I have no clue. Do I care because I like her Elemental Assassins series? I don't know. So yeah, that's kind of the difference. That's a sales funnel. So what I love about Jennifer is her posts. She's a writer, but she spends a crap ton of her time promoting other writers. And I love that about her. On Facebook, you don't see as much of that as you do on Twitter. And that blue check, who knows what that blue check up there is?
Verified.
Yeah, you're verified, and you have to be really cool to be verified. So, yeah, she's verified. So, to me, the biggest advantage of having a Facebook writer page is that you can do this. These are Facebook ads, and I get these suckers all day, every day. And I love it because used to I had time to go on Amazon and see what the new releases were and pour over that kind of, I don't have that time. And Facebook knows to bring that to me now. So if you have a business page, that means you can put your credit card in and you can run ads. And I've only started seeing this probably in the last 6 months, and it may be because I did some sort of Google search and now I'm getting them. And I noticed that when I was doing this presentation, I was like, I'm not getting these because I was looking for one to be able to snapshot. So I went over to Google and I put best horror writers. And I swear to God, I went back on Facebook and it was like, ad. And I'm like, I love Facebook. So, you've got a cat picture, I'm sold. And again, if I click this Shop Now button and it takes me over to Amazon and that price is $2.99, my sales funnel is fast. Looks good, buy it. It's not that high of a consideration item. And I impulse buy all day long. So you can make some money doing this. Here's some more that I did. They Survived the Apocalypse, and yes, I bought that one too. But all sorts of, I think these are wonderful. Some of them have graphics, and it's a video, but it's their book, and maybe sparks are flying. So you don't know that it's a video, it's just a cool looking thing. And so I think
Are
these,
these Facebook ads or are
Yes.
these just?
no, these are ads. They're paying, those writers are paying to get that in front of me, hoping that I will buy. And I haven't done the work. I don't know how profitable these are. And these are writers, some of these are writers I've never heard of. And they self-publish on Amazon, and that's why they offer it for $2.99, because they don't have a publisher that says you're not going to do that. And so they can do this, and they have the freedom to do this. I don't know how well it works out for them. I would love to know that, and I may look into that a little bit more because I think it's fascinating. Because for people like me,
there's
it's...
a price point. It's if you spend in the tens of thousands of dollar ranges, yeah, you can see a decent return. If you spend $50 or $100, you're probably, you might come out.
If you target it good enough, I
Yeah.
think. I mean, and one, I was reading, and one person said when she does her ads, she does, I know my reader has a Kindle and likes romance. And that's what I target, and I do get a pretty good return. And so, when you're going to your writer conferences and you're networking, maybe that's a question we'll talk about that in a minute, but yeah, maybe that's a question you have.
I have an author page on Facebook, and notice they keep saying that I can do a post boost on there if I pay them for that.
And those are cheap. I for the credit union, I do that all the time. And you set your amount. Like a Facebook, just a normal Facebook ad, you pretty much say run until I tell it not to run, and I will spend up to X amount a day. And Facebook will try to find you people who fit into that category so that your clicks don't ever go over that. So at least you know what you're going to spend. A boosted post, on the other hand, is different in that it's a post that you do. Maybe you, with your cool picture with your awesome plaque, maybe you decide you want to boost that on the Texas High Plains Writer Facebook page. And maybe you put in $20 to run for 5 days. So you're only spending $20. You're not spending $100. Your overall purchase is $20, and it will boost that post to people who kind of fit your criteria, that you are the one who sets that criteria. It's cheap. I mean, you spent $20 and maybe you got 200 pair of eyes on it. And so, I do it for fun because I'm a credit union and I have branding to do, and that's branding advertising for me.
And that's what I was going to say. Like, it's great for branding.
Right.
Or do you want to
For your
sell
sales
books?
funnel,
Yeah, do you want to sell
maybe
books
not.
to make back?
But if you're at the awareness part of your sales funnel and people aren't aware of you, boosting a post for $20 might be a good way to go. So play with it. Just kind of play
Keep
with
in
it.
mind that you self-publishers make more from your books than I do.
Exactly.
So remember that when you're
Yeah.
listening to me. Because I work with a publisher and I'm not self-published, I get far smaller cuts than you do if you
Yeah.
self-publish. So make sure to keep that in mind when you're listening to me and get you.
Okay, so Twitter. They have 340.2 million overall users, but they have 199 million monetizable daily users. So those are people who might see your ad on Twitter if you run ads there. There are 500 million tweets sent per day. 1 in 5 adults uses Twitter. How many of y'all are on Twitter? Okay. 1.04 billion revenue in Q1 of 2021, so it's not nearly the juggernaut that Facebook is. But it is the fastest conduit of news in the world. When Notre Dame was on fire in Paris, I couldn't find enough info about it on CNN. I went to Twitter, and there are people with their phones, and I could watch it happening right there. And so to me, Twitter is for news, and Twitter is for writer platform, but we'll get into that a little bit more, because it has an amazing author community. It also skews male, 70 to 30, so keep that in mind. I don't think it makes a big difference, because when you're talking about 199 million active users, it's not that big of a deal. So this is Jennifer Estep's Twitter page. She's done 87,000 tweets. She's prolific on Twitter. She has almost 15,000 followers on Twitter, which is pretty darn good. And she spends a lot of her time promoting other writers and also promoting herself. You don't see a whole lot of personal stuff on her Twitter or her Facebook. She's working on sales funnel and promoting other authors' sales funnel. So I think that's pretty cool. Chuck Wendig. So where Jennifer is all business, Chuck is all over the place, that's pretty much how he is. I discovered Chuck when I was looking at the best blogs on writing. He's done some amazing stuff about writing skills, stuff like that. And so that's how I discovered him. It was before he became like a New York Times writer dude. And so I've been following him for a long time. He uses tons of F-bombs. So if you look at him, be ready for that. But I think he's a lot of fun. His pin tweet at the top, that's his sales funnel right there. And it pretty much ends there because everything else with him is political. It's fascinating. And he engages and he rips people apart. And so would I do that? Probably not, because I want people to buy my book. So, but he's Chuck Wendig, and he does whatever the heck he wants to do. So, but I think he's fascinating.
It cost him a publishing gig.
Did it?
Yes, he was writing Star Wars books, and they dropped him.
So, I mean, there's consequences to doing whatever the heck you want to do, because some people don't agree with it. So, set your account up properly for Twitter. Your name, if you just want it to be your name. God, I've been on Twitter for so long, and I was so dumb back then. My name is Amarillo Kenja. Yay! Tells you nothing about me except that I live in Amarillo.
What are my initials?
Oh, see? Yeah, I mean, we do this before we know. So set your account up properly, your name, and either writer or author. Because of the author community on Twitter, I think that's important, that people know you're a writer right from the outset.
You can change it like once or twice. They allow you to go in.
Yeah, make sure it's what you want.
And change it, but after about the third time, no more changes to your name.
Yeah.
But I think the same affects.
Yeah, it's just if I'm having to search because I can't remember what Jennifer Eastep's page is and it's changed, then I think it has to be a really compelling reason to change. I haven't changed Amarillo Kenja, even though I'm a speaker now, or you know what. Anyway, yeah. It's fun giving them my card that says Amarillo Kenja. And I'm a writer, and a speaker, and yeah. Do not send, those spammy, you follow somebody and you get that spammy, thank you for following, buy my book on. I'm like, I hate that. I think everybody hates that. Be genuine. Don't be a sales pitch 24/7. Optimize your bio using verbs. This is one of my favorite ones that I read. She could have just said, I write books. And instead, she wrote, I'm a memorialist. Anyway, thank you. Whose books inspire childhood sexual abuse survivors. Wow. I mean, you know exactly what she does. And I love that. You can retweet or tweet interesting articles. Retweet other authors, not just buy my book again. Readers are on Twitter, and so are book bloggers, book reviewers, publishing insiders, and you should be too. I'm going to give you a web address, and I can always email this presentation. So now that I'm halfway through, you don't have to take like copious notes, but whatever. So it is the foremost community, and I'm going to give you Twitter knows this, and so Twitter actually has like a page that is for writers. It has all of these different articles and people to follow it. They've done what they can to really cultivate that. Twitter is aware of how great they are for writers. And tweet regularly. Whatever you do, they want to know that you're on there, you're active on there. If I go, I've just read a great book and I'm so excited and I want to tell the author how much I liked that book, and they haven't been on there since 2013, I'm like, So it kind of takes the wind out of my sails. So we've come to the end of the first part of the session, and now I'm going to turn it over to you. And what I want you to do is, what is the one thing we've talked about so far that's really grabbed your attention? And then write one goal based upon what you've learned so far and share out with the person next to you. or below you or above you or whatever. And I'm going to give you a few minutes to do that. Who wants to share with me one thing that surprised you, caught your attention, and one goal that you want to do? Come on, be brave. Summer.
The one that got me was what you were just talking about, which was putting verbs in your Twitter bio.
Yeah.
Because I'm in the writing community on Twitter, and pretty much nobody does that. They just use nouns to describe themselves,
Right.
and not necessarily what their presence or what they're doing and how that impacts readers.
Yes. And it's much more impactful. Yep. Awesome.
And what did you call it? You described yourself?
Your Twitter bio, and it's very short, but most people are like, I'm a writer, I write things. And that one that I read about sexual abuse survivors, you use verbs instead of I am. And it kind of, I don't know, it just makes it grab you.
So I want to, just a quick aside, it's the same for your book.
Oh, yeah.
Strong verbs make a much better read than a
Yep.
bunch of adjectives. And
Yep, exactly. Awesome. Who else? Anyone?
I'm torn between one thing, between the blogging and Twitter, but I really like what you said about Twitter. I'm not on Twitter yet, so I thought that was interesting, but I didn't know how big the writing community was on Twitter, so definitely something I need to check out.
And we'll talk a little bit more about that in networking, but yeah.
The one goal, based on what I've learned so far, I already kind of had this goal for next year to start my blog, to start blogging, because I have an idea for my blog and get that set up and the beginning of maybe getting a website done. And based on what you said about Twitter, my Facebook page is already Lynette Chaloka author, and you said it probably needs to be Lynette Chaloka author on Twitter. Also, I was thinking maybe my website probably needs to be that same way, just to keep it consistent, maybe.
Maybe. Put some thought into it, because just like my friend Kelly, she could have been Kelly McDonald author, Kelly McDonald speaker. You can do more than one thing.
Right.
But you're still just Lynette.
That's a good point. Thank you.
Who knows what that'll evolve into, and so yeah,
that is a very good point. Thank you.
Yeah. So, okay. Anybody else? Ready to move on? Okay. Networking. I don't know. I was like looking on Google Images, and I'm like, ooh, because I am actually an introvert. I present as extroverted. I can tell you when I go home after this, I'm going to have to chill out in a completely silent room, because it zaps my energy. Doesn't mean I can't do it. Doesn't mean I'm not good at it. It's just harder for me. And so I would imagine that for some of you in this room, it's the same way. And so that picture, I was just like, oh my God, I'd rather bite my arm off at the elbow than do that. That is so hard. So many of us are introverts rather, and we're like that. And it is hard. Is it worth it? I'm going to say yes. Yeah, and we'll talk about that. So let's say you're going to something like this. How many of you have been to writers' conferences before? Oh yeah, great, awesome. How hard was that for you to just mix with people? Like, I got a migraine. It was me and Natalie Bright. How many of you know Natalie? She and I went to my first conference, and I actually pitched a literary agent at that conference, and I got a migraine because it stressed me out so much talking to people. I had to go lay down for an hour. So, yeah, that stuff is hard. It's not easy. So make it easier on yourself and plan ahead. That's the key. When I was a reporter, I didn't walk into a press conference with George W. Bush, which I've actually done before he was president. He was governor at that time, but I didn't walk in there unprepared. I had a list of questions that I wanted answers to. And so it's the same thing when you're networking. Know your target first off. Are you going to network with other writers, with a literary agent, potential readers even? Some of us are just groupies and we go hang out at conferences because we think they're fun. And so we like to volunteer or whatever. We don't have any boundaries, whatever. So know who your target is when you go there and who you want to be talking to. Do your research. follow them on Twitter, read their blog. But also, I hate this. When you go to a networking thing, you finally put yourself out there, and the person you're talking to is staring over your shoulder, trying to find somebody better than you to talk to. I hate that. So don't be that person. Don't be picky. Everyone has a network, and who they know might surprise you. I'm a nobody. I'm totally a nobody, but I have really cool friends, and there's no telling who I could hook you up with. So look at everybody as a potential good person to network with. Brainstorm what you want to know about. People like to talk about themselves, and you're the good listener. So here's some questions. How did you end up where you are now? Where do you want to go from here? What do you look for in a manuscript? What's the most important skill an aspiring writer should have? Thick skin, hello. Why did you get into publishing, whatever? So kind of be prepared. Now, don't take out your list of questions. Why did you get into that? When you actually, make sure you practice and you kind of got those up there, but it helps you be more confident if you're prepared. Find a place where you're comfortable. Is it a big workshop? Is it a small workshop? Is it here? Wherever you're comfortable. Some people feel more comfortable going to like a panel because they know there's a topic and they're not just going to be set free in a room with people to float around and be embarrassed all the time. So maybe you volunteer at a conference because that's a way to put you to work, you're useful, and you get to talk to people. So yeah, be comfortable. Have a business card. Guess who didn't bring any today? Yeah, that'd be me. It makes you look professional. It's a physical reminder of you, and it's a way to contact you. Keep it simple. Name, title, phone, blog URL if you have one, email, Twitter handle if you have one. Lots of white space. Again, white space is your friend. Do you know that actually at conferences now, white space is a word? Because used to conferences were back to back to back to back to back to back, and people were just exhausted and they were dropping out halfway through to go get a drink or whatever. And so now they're actually building in white space in conferences. So white space is your friend. Where are we? Okay. I want to talk a little bit. I told you about my friend Kelly. And again, I'm an introvert, loved her presentation. Went up to her afterward. She came to Amarillo. She's this big marketing people. Some marketing people like her in Dallas, very progressive. I pick her up at the airport in my Cadillac with my giant cross hanging from my mirror, and she's like, oh my God. But we hit it off. We had a great time. So I start going to Dallas. We go to Gay Bingo, which was eye-opening for me. And awesome. And so eventually she says, you do pretty good presentations. Would you consider when somebody calls me and says, can you do mommy marketing? And I say, yes, because the answer is always yes, but I don't have a mommy marketing presentation. Would you do that deck for me? Okay. So I started out doing that. And then I just had my son, which, by the way, I never said why I was not in Panhandle Professional Writers anymore. Halfway through my tenureship as president, I had a 20-year-old daughter and got knocked up at 41 and suddenly became really busy. So yeah, that's why complete surprise. So I just had my child and she said, you know what, I'm getting tons of requests for people in the $5,000 range for speaking. I don't do that. I do 15 was her price back then. And she's like, but I get tons. Would you like me to train you on all my topics and you can be the fake Gucci Kelly McDonald and go speak for me? I'm an introvert. That is the scariest crap I've ever heard in my life. And she doesn't do stuff for, like, no offense, this is an awesome meeting, but this is not her daily fare. It is the National Electric Company distributors. There is a conference for everything. She did go to the Corn Maze conference, and I was really jealous about that one. But so there's a ton of work, especially pre-COVID. And so she's like, that I did. And I worked my butt off because she could talk about anything for 2 hours, no problem. She didn't even have to do a day work, presentation. I can't do that. I have to be structured. I have to know. I have to practice because it doesn't come easily for me. but I did it. And I have been to almost every state in the country. I have traveled. It's a lot of work. I don't want to do it full time like she does, because I don't know anybody who works harder than she does. So, but it's fun, and it's really made me grow. And if I hadn't been brave enough to go up to her after that conference, I wouldn't be doing some of the things that I do now. I read an author, his name was Dan Price. He had a great book on marketing. And then he had a book on science fiction. And I'm like, what the heck? And so I tweeted him, because writers are on Twitter, and he tweeted me back. And then we became really good friends. I ended up in one of his books, my name. He was like, you've been so great, you've promoted me, you're now a character. I'm like, oh my God. If I hadn't put myself out there, none of the stuff that happens to me, and some of it's crazy, would happen. So that's why, I mean, that's a case, even as an introvert, to just, the answer is always yes. Again, get on Twitter. It's the place for the writing and publishing industry. Here is the website I was telling you about. This is what it looks like. It's almost like a blog page for writers on Twitter, because they know what they've got. So start there. Use Twitter to get to know others in the industry. Follow them. Do searches. Find your favorite writers. Follow them. Read their blogs. So we've talked about how everybody's on there as far as the writing community, publishers, reviewers, book bloggers. Author hashtags. How many of you know about these and use these all the time? Yeah, me too. I have people I've never met in real life who he would just put a list of writers that he followed and then tag it WW, Writer Wednesday. Every Wednesday, he would spend the entire day promoting his friends, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So, am writing, am editing, Writer Wednesday, Writers Live, Write Tip. I think that's cool because, you know, these are now indexed, tweets are indexed, and you can search them, like histories. So if you just want to get some good writes, go ahead and search that Write Tip, and boom, you're going to have all these different, and you can go, oh, that's interesting, I think I'll follow him or her. And so that's how you kind of build your community there on Twitter. I have people, I'm not writing anymore. I was writing a novel and life happened. But I'm still really good friends with all of those people that I met on Twitter. So, let's see, wait. So use the Twitter to get to know these people, to follow these people. And then when you go to industry events in real life, you already know them. But maybe you don't do that. Maybe instead you've got 5 or 6 people on Twitter that you've befriended, y'all kind of become close. Why not do a digital coffee? Let's do a Zoom coffee. Let's do a Zoom happy hour. So you can move it from Twitter then to another venue to where you can actually talk and get to know them better. So again, put yourself out there. So your turn. Who is your networking target? Who, if you could, sky's the limit. Twitter is the great equalizer. I can talk to Stephen King on there if I want. I can tweet, Dean Koontz. I can do whatever I want. We're all the same on Twitter. So who is your target? And then write 2 questions that you would ask that target and share with the person next to you, below you, above you. I'm like, we'll just go all day. It's fine. Okay, so who wants to share what you told your neighbor? Anyone?
We're not on.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Okay, so who wants to share what you talked with your neighbor about? Anyone? Who's your target? Summer.
My target would probably be some ghostwriters who have in-house editing services. That would be the main reason I would go to a con. I didn't get to 2 questions, but one of the questions would be what stage of editing do you tend to be first at? Because some people are more polished than others, so I don't know to create geared towards this.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. We will go ahead and take a quick break, and then we will come back and do elevator pitch. That's what we're going to end on. That's one thing I've learned about speaking, is if you end 10 minutes early, nobody cares. If you end 10 minutes late, a lot of people care. So I'd rather end early than late, and I try to respect that all the time. So, come on. There we go. Okay, so let's talk about the elevator pitch. And I know we all probably know what the heck an elevator pitch is, but basically, if you walk onto an elevator and the CEO of Wiley Publishing is on that elevator, the whole preface is you have to be able to speak to them in the 20 seconds it takes to descend the elevator down to the first floor. That's all the time you have. And so it's getting your pitch quick, fast, sharp, awesome in 20 seconds. And of course things don't actually happen that way. I was reading an article and she's like, I actually did step onto the elevator with the huge CEO of a publishing company and we talked about the damn weather. We didn't do my elevator pitch. So doesn't happen that way, but it's an important concept because I think this is fascinating. Not only does that one pitch apply to your book's unique selling proposition or selling point, but it also is how agents could pitch your book to a publisher, how a sales team could pitch your books to retail buyers, how a publicist could pitch your book to reviewers, how your book could be described on social media, and then how the book blurb could pitch the book to readers. So that one elevator speech has a really long life, or it could. So that's why it's so important. I love this. So this is the elevator pitch for Harry Potter. Orphan boy goes to school for wizards. You don't see anything about Voldemort. They don't talk about Hermione or Ron. They don't talk about Hogwarts. They don't get into the Muggle family that had adopted him or raised him. It's just that. And yet, all you're doing is you want that listener, after you do your elevator pitch, to go, ooh, tell me more. So it doesn't have to be 50 words. In a minute, we're going to do your elevator pitch, and it's going to fit on this. So Summer's like, if I write microscopically. So yeah. But it's not just for your book. You could do elevator pitches for other things in your life. And what do? You don't want to talk for the next 20 minutes about what you do. And they don't want to hear it for 20 minutes. They want to hear it for a minute. What do you write? What are you working on right now? You could do an elevator pitch for that. And then you practice it. I told you I started out life as a reporter. And I can't tell you how many people I would go interview and I would ask a quick question. What is this? And they would drone for 5 minutes. I can't put that on the news. I can put 10-second sound bites on the news. So when I left anchoring and I went instead to work for the congressman, I had to speak for him a lot. And so I had to learn to apply that to myself and make sure that I spoke in sound bites. So speak in sound bites. And I'm going to go ahead and start this now because we know what it is and everything. Here's your assignment. Write your elevator pitch on a sticky note. I have pens. I'm like, they're writers. They all have pens. I don't need to bring pens, but just in case. Oh yeah, here we go. Do that.
I don't have a pen.
You don't have a pen? I have pens.
I need one as well. Yeah.
Who else needs a pen? Anyone? Okay. Take one down, pass it around. Courtesy of the People's Federal Credit Union. Don't tell my boss that. Okay. Anyone else need a pen? All right. So your elevator pitch could be on your book. It could be on your job. It could be what you're working on. I'm gonna let you don't have to do just your book elevator pitch. If you think something else is more important or more pertinent in your life right now, use that. And this stuff is not easy, I know that. And if you have to write it and then edit it and then edit it and then kill your darlings and edit it some more, do that. And if you need more than one sticky note, not to continue, but to redo, that's fine. Thank you. And I'm going to give you about 10 minutes for that. Yes, and when you get done, share out. To my writers conference with Natalie, I had a literary agent scheduled time to do a pitch. Her name was Colleen Lindsay. She was the most intimidating person I have ever met in my entire life. And at the time, I was going through a Janet Ivanovich type phase, and my work in progress was about a middle-aged woman who was facing bankruptcy, who decides to go after a gangster who has been missing, and there's, $100,000 reward for this gangster. So that was my work in progress. But when I finished, she goes, "Well, you have a lot going on." That was my first experience. I did not have my elevator pitch down like I should have. And that's probably why I got the migraine and then had to go lie down. So, yeah, we're going to keep that from happening. So who wants to share your elevator pitch? Yes, ma'am.
Is it okay that I added 5 extra words, so it's 25 words?
Today, yes. Work on those 5 words, though.
Okay. The girl who sees spirits. A young girl that sees unusual things has a normal life until a shadow or spirit comes and says hi in an unpleasant way.
Okay. I want to know more. I would also, one thing that I did not say, because I think I heard somebody talk about, if my work is not done, should I do an elevator pitch? And you can. I would say, though, don't until, it could change. So just be aware of that. Your elevator pitch may change as you finish your work in progress, and that's okay.
It's a good way to find out if your book idea is good, though.
Yeah.
By writing an elevator pitch.
True. Mine had a lot going on, so not that I'm bitter. Yeah. Who else wants to share?
A streetwise orphan from New York City travels to ancient Persia in a race against time to save her best friend from an evil wizard.
Do you know the same conference, I was in some panel and they said, time travel is dead, do not. And then right after that, like 5 books exploded with time travel, and I'm like, they don't know everything. So I would definitely read that and want to know more.
Yeah, Thriller Fest, I heard nothing but legal thrillers are dead, and then Scott Turow came out with a new book.
Yeah, it's not. No genre is dead. So, yes. Yes.
Okay, college sophomore sees ghost, medium doesn't. Ghost comes to student to have him tell loved ones things they need to know.
Okay.
That's cool. I like that.
Medium doesn't. Like a psychic, basically. That's interesting that you have the one sentence about the medium in there. Hermione wasn't there, Ron wasn't there, and they're pretty important too. I think yours would stand alone without the medium. My opinion.
My opinion is that that's a good thing, because it lets you know that, well, it just seems like it's more real because the medium wasn't conjuring up something that, yeah.
Right. And that's your kind of conflict area and stuff too. So totally. I get it. Good. Who else?
Okay, I was supposed to have you.
Oh, wait. Okay. We'll do you and then you.
Leaked information from a German aircraft factory tangles Hans in a web of lies and deceit.
Who's Hans? It's a series, right? But what if I'm starting at that book and I don't know who the heck Hans is?
Okay, so I'm asking.
Ex-FBI agent, or so just kind of a descriptor of who he is.
Tangles. Okay, just put something without the name.
Yeah, because, Harry Potter's an orphan, and that's what they said, an orphan. They didn't say Harry, because nobody knows who he was at first. So, but besides that, yes. Absolutely right. Okay,
A young engineer.
there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, ready?
She found a body on his ranch. Is he a killer or the answer to her prayers?
Interesting. I like it. I like it. It's short, yes, absolutely, and it leaves me wanting more. Very good. Yes?
An English teacher loses her dog and finds love in the process.
Okay. Yes, I'm in. Absolutely. Who else? Anyone else? Yes.
A graphic artist fabricates the cards that prove sports cards investments can be a loss.
Okay. Where conflict? Where's a little something more of where the story goes? Kind of, what do y'all think? What's missing?
Is it a fabricated with the forges? Forges.
Okay, that's a better word.
Say that again with the word then.
A graphic artist forges the cards that prove sports cards investments can be a loss.
Yes. Yeah. That makes me want to know more. How? Yeah.
She's conning them.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Anyone? Lynette?
A medieval lady struggles to fulfill her father's last wish while being pursued as a spy.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I like it. Anyone else? Summer.
A disgraced heiress returns home to discover her father promised her to a demon in exchange for undoable powers.
Oh, yes. I would read that. If I saw a Facebook ad, click all the way through the sales funnel. Yes. All right. Anyone else? Okay. What time are we ending? 12:08. Oh, we're not quite done. One more slide. Final thoughts. So whether you've published a book or not, whether you've started your work in progress or not, it is never too early to start building your platform on Twitter, on Facebook, to make some connections and to network. Why? Because when you do finish your work in progress, you've already got that platform when it's go time. And it takes time. You got to be patient. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It takes time and it takes your effort. So start today. All right.